In today's brief video, I want to take a moment and talk to you guys about the real cost of drug addiction. Whether we're talking about nicotine products, THC, alcohol, or stimulant based products, this video is going to apply to you. And throughout the course of the video, I'm going to use my real life struggle with active substance use as an example. Now, if you wind up enjoying the content in today's video, be sure to check out the video description or the pinned comment to learn more about our addiction mindset recovery coaching, paid and free program resources. The real cost of addiction is actually astronomical. And the reason it's so shocking for many people is because when we get into using drugs, the manufacturers of these substances are anything but upfront about the cost of addiction. If I walk into a gas station and I go to buy a pack of cigarettes, it's $10. If I go to buy a bottle of liquor, it's $20, $30, $40. And in the moment, it's not that expensive. And this is one of the major problems with most addictive substances. The cost of entry when it comes into using a drug is in most cases actually pretty cheap. A majority of people can afford the cost of entry when it comes to addiction. There's not a large price barrier to get started. So financially, it's not a big deal in most cases in the beginning. Now, if we look at my situation, someone who struggled with nicotine, THC, stimulant based products, and adult media content, it's pretty easy to say that I was spending at least $10 a day on these substances. And that's a large underestimation because the reality is, if we throw alcohol into the mix and you're ordering drinks out at a restaurant, or if we throw weed into the mix, it very, very quickly could have exceeded $10 a day in many different scenarios. So $10 a day is going to add up to $3,600 a year. I struggled with active addiction for a period of about 9 years, which comes out to about $32,400 over the course of 9 years. Here's the thing though. When I bought my first cigarette, when I bought my first vape, when I bought my first drink of alcohol, no one said to me, hey, this cigarette is going to cost you $32,400. No one said to me, hey, this ounce of weed is going to cost you $32,400 over the next 9 years of your life. Because if you had told me that when I originally walked in there to purchase said substance, I would have said, you're insane. I'm not going to pay that amount of money. In no circumstances am I going to front $32,000. And this is what makes these companies and these things so deceitful. The upfront cost is cheap, but the cost in the long run is astronomical. It's like they're financing a drug for you, right? It's like a lease on a drug is essentially what they're giving you. It's cheap up front, but it's going to cost you a lot after you add in the interest. And the question becomes, okay, what's the interest payments on $32,400 over the cost of 9 years? Well, that's the cold hard cost of cash. That's like what I spent on average over the course of 9 years of my life. Now, that's not including the money that I lost in interest had I invested that money back into my business, back into the S&P 500, back into something positive that would have given me a return on my investment. That's not even counting that cost. But the other cost that we're not counting when it comes to addiction is the cost of our time, the cost of our energy, the cost of our health, and the cost of our motivation. How do you quantify those factors? What was my time actually worth from the ages of 20, 18 years old all the way up to 27 years old? What was the cost of my motivation actually worth? What could have had I achieved by the age of 34 if I could get those 9 years of my life back? How do you quantify that cost? Knowing what I know now and accomplishing the things that I've accomplished now in business, I can tell you it's a heck of a lot more money than $32,400. They forget to tell you about that though. They forget to tell you about the cost that it takes on your relationships. They forget to tell you about those things. And this is one of the reasons why I have such a vendetta with addiction. It's very, very deceitful, and they make the barrier of entry so cheap. And this is why addiction appeals to the masses. If you told me, hey, something's going to cost you $10 a day, I would sit down and say, yeah, that's not so bad. I could probably swing $10 a day for the rest of my life. But when you actually think about how that number adds up, when you think about the lost interest that you could have been receiving on the return in your investment, when you think about the cost to your health, when you think about the cost to your time, when you think about the cost to your motivation, when you think about the toll and the cost that it takes on your relationships, $32,400 would have been a bargain for 9 years of my life throughout active addiction. And this is why I despise addiction as much as I do. And that's why I put out the amount of content that I do when it comes to this. There's a lot of things that we may question the cost on, right? You go to buy a new car. Let's say you're buying a foreign vehicle. Let's say you're buying a really high-end Mercedes and it's a $80 to $100,000 vehicle. You might say, oh my God, that's outrageous. No, why would someone pay that for a vehicle? Well, at least they're being upfront about the cost, right? Here's the sticker price. Here's what's going to cost you. Once that money's out of your account, it's gone. Now, of course, with a car, you have maintenance costs and insurance and a few other things, but it's nothing that you can't estimate or that you can't figure out. When it comes to addiction, though, we don't have that opportunity because we don't know exactly where that substance is going to lead a person. One person might pick up a drink and they might be able to put it down. Another person might pick up a drink and they might abuse that substance for the next 20, 30, 40 years of their life. There's no way that person ever could have estimated the cost that they were going to incur over that 40 years of life. There is a cost to everything that we do, right? Arguably, except for sobriety and recovery. Taking better care of yourself, living a better life, more full of purpose, living a life of, that's quite happier, at least in my case it is, than when I struggled with active addiction. That's free. Sobriety is free. Recovery is free. It costs you nothing except for some effort and some time and some dedication and some work. Addiction, on the other hand, though, there's a very, very, very numerical figure at the end of the day that we can come up with. But the number that we can't come up with is what was our time worth? What was our skill set worth? What was that wasted potential worth? That became a cost that I no longer wanted to incur at one point in my life. And that's when I made the decision to seek sobriety and recovery. I wanted to start to invest my money, my time, my energy, my health, my efforts, my motivation into something that was going to give me a positive return on my investment. I wouldn't even have a problem with $10 a day, just if these companies or these manufacturers, or if somehow I could have had a better reality of what this was going to cost me. Because I don't think most people look at it that way. If I said, hey, your first pack of cigarettes, $10, but I'm actually going to charge you up front $32,400 for the next 9 years of your life, is that an investment that you would be willing to make? And this isn't even taking into consideration I would get sick, I'd go to a doctor's office, I'd have to call off of work. Now I'm getting tossed around the medical system, copay, trying to figure out what's wrong with me. Now I'm missing income from my job, income from my career. Now I'm feeling less motivated. Now I'm anxious and depressed. So now I'm spending money with a therapist. The cost is astronomical. And I don't even think people realize all the ways that addiction is dipping its hands into your pocket and taking a little more each day, each week, each month, each year, each decade from a person. It does it in a very, very, very sneaky way. The same way someone might go to lease a vehicle or lease a television. Let's say someone's leasing a television from Rent-A-Center. Let's say the total value of the TV is $2,000, but you rent that television for the next 30 years of your life. You're paying a heck of a lot more than the total value of that television. That's why Rent-A-Center is always under some heat too, if you've ever read about some of their, business practices. But this is not throw Rent-A-Center under the bus at all. It's just an example. You can wind up paying a lot more than you expect. And I think this is the case for most individuals. I know it was the case for myself when it comes to active addiction. And this is why it's so important. If you're ready to make a change, if you're ready to break away, if you're ready to pursue sobriety and recovery, there really is no better time than now. How much more of your time, your energy, your money, your effort, your motivation can you afford to invest in something that's never going to give you a return on your investment? If the answer is nothing, be sure to check out the pinned comment or the video description to download one of our free guides on quitting nicotine or weed or our 11 foundational pillars of recovery, or take the time to invest some money on one of our coaching programs. At least you know the upfront cost of those. There's no strings attached there. All right, guys, until the next video.